All right. So I would like to first say good morning and welcome you all to the 6th Annual City Tech Science Fiction Symposium with this year's important topic of access and SF. My name is Jason Ellis, and I'm an associate professor of English here at City Tech. I co-organize this event with an amazing team, including Associate Professor of English Jill Belli, Collections Management Librarian and Assistant Professor Wynette Clyde, Assistant Professor of English Lucas Kwong, and Assistant Professor of English Lavelle Porter. The annual City Tech Science Fiction Symposium was established to celebrate the City Tech Science Fiction Collection, the 600 linear foot collection of magazines, books, and scholarship that was inaugurated by an incredible anonymous donation in 2016. Since then, the collection has grown with additional donations and has been put to use as a research and teaching resource. An issue discussed at last year's symposium on race and SF concerned access to the genre in terms of opportunities to create, enjoy, celebrate, identify with, and connect with others. Access, of course, is a shared concern of many historically marginalized and oppressed groups, including women, the disabled, LGBTQ persons, and the working class. While issues of access were, of course, an important concern before the pandemic, problems with access were made more obvious by reduced access to books due to bookstore and library closings, less access to social interaction, community participation and mentorship, and reduced access to computers, internet access, and quiet spaces for learning and work. These issues with access before and during the pandemic extend to SF. William Gibson's aphorism, quote, "The future has arrived, it's just not evenly distributed yet," end quote, offers a conceptual lens for this. While Gibson's use of the term future equates to the technoscientific, we can substitute SF as representing many imagined futures, and those futures represented by SF are not evenly distributed in terms of access to the genre for creators, readers, fans, and critics. Lack of access isn't only a problem for those who might find enjoyment, meaning, and community through SF in the present. It's also a potentially long-term problem that might affect the types of stories that are produced, what characters get created, and who gets to make them. Furthermore, geopolitical and linguistic borders place barriers to the free exchange of ideas and stories. Today, we will explore the broad theme of access in SF as a way to understand the relationship between them, identify what's at stake and for whom, foster alliances between those fighting for access, and discuss how improving access for some improves access for all. Unfortunately, two City Tech English Department colleagues and friends who I know would have had invaluable contributions to make to our conversations today and who exemplify the best of what it means to support others through selfless access to their knowledge, wisdom, and kindness passed away far too soon. It is safe to say that without Mary Nillis, we might not be meeting here today. After Alan Lovegreen and I got the foundation grant to bring the original SF collection to City Tech, Mary literally grabbed me by the shirt collars and said, "Jason, you've got to let people know about the collection. You've got to get faculty and students involved in it." Her infectious enthusiasm led to my laying the groundwork for our first symposium. Additionally, Mary gave me invaluable advice about how to access institutional resources, who to talk to, how to ask them, and where the bodies were buried, which proved invaluable for that first successful symposium and those that followed. Aaron Barlow, who was understandably proud of having written the second dissertation on the work of Philip K. Dick, right on the heels of Kim Stanley Robinson, was always ready to encourage others' ideas and work. Pause amidst the chaos of our cramped hallways to discuss a thought before re-entering the fray with a wink, or lose an hour or two arguing about theory and praxis ensconced in his book-filled cubicle. Aaron shared his ideas freely and fostered the development of others' ideas. Not content with always publishing through the establishment, he put the word to the street with new media and blogging. When I had an incredible offer to appear as a guest on astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson's Star Talk radio show, it had been, unbeknownst to me at the time, Aaron who had given the show's producers my name. His selfless act gave me access to an amazing opportunity. Later, Aaron made a significant donation of his extensive library of Philip K. Dick books to the City Tech science fiction collection so that they would be accessible to students and scholars. Again, a selfless act in which he did not want to receive any credit or recognition for. It is in honor of Mary and Aaron that we dedicate this year's symposium. My co-organizers and I would like to thank the folks who helped make these events possible. First, our thanks go to the Faculty Commons and design intern Evelyn Ng. Each event's poster has been designed by a City Tech student. This year, Evelyn designed the one that you see on the screen now with its identity-clad superheroes accessing other worlds via its evocative Stargate-like portal. Second, we would like to thank our presenters, panelists, moderators, and especially our keynote speakers, Amina Gallardo and Ann Matsucci, for sharing their work and time with us today. And also, especially with our keynote speakers organizing the Wikipedia Editathon that began on Monday. Third, we would like to thank editor Trevor Quashie, managing editor Emily Hockaday, for organizing this year's writers panel and announcing the winner of the first Analog Emerging Black Voices Award here today, as well as the writers of analog science fiction, in fact, Alec Navala-Lee, Marie Vibert, and Chelsea Obada-Chana for being with us today. And finally, we thank Dean Justin Vazquez-Poritz and the School of Arts and Sciences for continuing support for this series of symposia and the science fiction, the City Tech Science Fiction Collection. Now, I would like to turn the mic over to Dean Justin Vazquez-Poritz, who's joining us remotely over the phone. Dean Vazquez-Poritz, you should be able to talk now.
Good morning, everyone. I have such fond memories of Professor Mary Nillis and Aaron Barlow as well. Most of my conversations with either of them, or anyone that knew them, wouldn't be surprised to know, would last for at least a solid hour. But they would be so full of inspiration and creative ideas that I would be feeling all things are possible for the rest of the day. I would also like to remember another loss to the science fiction community, that of Ben Bover. He died from COVID-related complications last year. He was a former editor of the analog science fiction Fact magazine, whose current editor and authors have collaborated with us on past symposia and join us again today. I greatly enjoyed Bover's grand tour of the solar system, which included a book for each planet. While he never did get to Pluto, at least now it's no longer classified as a planet, and so in that sense his grand tour is complete. During these past 6 years, it's been truly impressive to see how the symposium has evolved, building on past themes, with last year being race and science fiction, and this year is access and science. Thematic connections galore in the background, such as education and the access to knowledge and skill sets to apply that knowledge. Connections between science and science fiction. Endless stream that provides curiosity, a feeling of awe, and the thirst for knowledge. None of that is possible without access. I would like to give my heartfelt thanks to the symposium co-organizers who have made today's event possible. Professor Jill Belli, Wynette Clyde, Jason Ellis, Lucas Kwong, and Lavelle Porter. I am also grateful to the Faculty Commons design trainee, Evelyn Ng, who created this year's poster, faculty advisor, Professor Mary Ann Beal, and designer and trainee supervisor, or Zilfinger. We'd like to welcome all of our presenters, our keynote speakers, our panels of writers and researchers, our moderators, and our audience members. And I would like to thank all of you for your contributions in making this such an exciting event.
All right, thank you, Dean Justin Vazquez-Poritz for that. So we're going to get started in just a moment with the rest of the program. And there's a few things that I want to share with you all about Zoom webinar, if you're not familiar with it. First, you might be wondering why there's not a sea of faces on the screen right now. And with Zoom webinar, with as many attendees as we have, each face would be very small. So with webinar, it's essentially you're watching a stage from which presentations will take place throughout the day. Now, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you have some controls down there. First off, if you're hearing impaired, you'll see there's an option for live transcript. And this is something that's automatically generated by Zoom for us. And you can turn that on and off by clicking that button at the bottom of the screen toward the middle right. To the left of that, you'll see the Q&A button. And if you click that, this is where it'll pop up a window where you can pose questions and leave comments for panelists during each session. This is where moderators will look when we begin the Q&A section of each session. So please share your questions at any point during the session using Q&A. If you happen to have a question that maybe is too long or too much for you to write, you can simply write in the Q&A that you would like to ask a question. If we exhaust the questions in Q&A, you can also click the button to the left of that to raise your hand. And we'll be watching for those hands raised after we've addressed questions in Q&A if there's still remaining time. And then finally, to the left of that is chat. And with chat, you have different options for who to communicate with. I would recommend when you open chat, where it says to, pull that menu down and choose everyone. Because if you maybe have a question you would like to ask a panelist, but don't want to use the Q&A time to do so, by leaving a chat message there for everyone, the panelists will see it whenever they return from panelists back to their attendee role during the webinar. Now, of course, we're living in challenging, difficult, and strange times. Zoom webinar is a strange thing to be using for what is normally an in-person event. There are a lot of moving parts and various technologies that we depend upon to make sure it all works. There might be problems and breakdowns, and if that happens, please bear with us and be patient. And I also wanted to mention that, as you can see on the screen here, that you can contact me if you have any questions or technical problems, jellis@citytech.cuny.edu. Our event hashtag on social media is CityTechSF altogether. And you can follow us on Twitter at CityTechSF. And if you want to share the live stream with any of your friends or colleagues, you can go to youtube.com/dynamic_subspace. And at the very top, you'll see a icon for live video. And you click that, and that'll bring up the symposium outside of the Zoom webinar. But unfortunately, we were not able to guarantee that we can monitor chat in both places. So primarily, we're using the Zoom webinar for like Q&A and interacting with panels. So with that, I want to welcome you to the symposium. If you'll bear with us, we're going to get the first session set up, and we'll get started with the program in just a moment with paper session 1, Access to International SF.